Remember that smell? Plastic cases, carpet cleaner, and popcorn. Remember the panic at 9 p.m., scrambling to rewind? Or the dread of that red late fee envelope in your mailbox? For a generation, this wasn't just shopping. It was a ritual. And its king was a $5 billion empire called Blockbuster. But in less than a decade, a tiny startup with a red envelope turned that empire into a nostalgic punchline. This isn't just a business story. This is a story of blindness, arrogance, and a mistake so big, it's taught in every business school on Earth. Today, we're performing the autopsy. In its prime, Blockbuster wasn't just a store. It was a monopoly on our Friday nights. At its peak, over 9,000 stores worldwide, one opening every 17 hours. They were worth $5 billion. Their model was brutally simple. Rent movies for a few days, charge astronomical fees if you're late. In fact, late fees made up roughly 16% of Blockbuster's revenue. Let that sink in. 16% of their profits came from punishing their own customers. It was $1 billion addiction. And addictions make you vulnerable. In 1997, as Blockbuster was stamping its logo on the planet, a tiny company called Netflix was born. Not with streaming, but with a seemingly ridiculous idea: DVDs by mail. It was a solution built on two secret weapons. First, a subscription model. All you can watch for a flat fee. No late fees. Ever. Second, and this is genius, they exploited a new postal rule. DVDs could be mailed as lightweight letters for pennies. Netflix turned every mailbox in America into a potential Blockbuster store. No real estate, no staff, just pure, scalable convenience. In 2000, sensing the threat too early, Netflix made a desperate move. They offered to sell themselves to Blockbuster for just $50 million. Blockbuster CEO, John Antioco, laughed them out of the room. He saw a niche service for movie geeks. Not a predator. It was, in hindsight, one of the most catastrophic blunders in corporate history. Year 1997. But Netflix wasn't done. In 2007, they made a bet that would change everything. They introduced streaming, not as the main event, but as a free bonus for DVD subscribers. This was the masterstroke. While Blockbuster was fighting to keep people driving to stores, Netflix was eliminating the last bit of friction: the wait. It was no longer just movies by mail. Look at this timeline of destruction. Year 1997, Netflix is founded. 2000, they offer to sell for $50 million and get laughed away. 2007, they flip the switch on streaming. And by 2010, the giant falls. Blockbuster declares bankruptcy. In just 13 years, movies by mail became movies by magic. But here's the twist in the timeline. While Netflix was mailing DVDs, Blockbuster wasn't completely blind. That same year, their CEO rejected Netflix. 2000, they actually partnered with a company called Enron Broadband to build their own streaming future. But that partnership became an anchor. In 2001, Enron collapsed in one of the biggest corporate scandals in history, and Blockbuster's streaming future imploded with it. So when streaming's true moment arrived years later, Blockbuster was paralyzed. Weighed down by $1 billion in debt from their physical stores, and with their digital plan in ashes, they couldn't even get to the starting line. So why did Blockbuster bleed out? Let's diagnose the 3 fatal wounds. First, the strategic blind spot. They dismissed Netflix as a niche. They couldn't imagine their core customer, the family, being willing to wait a few days for movies in the mail. They failed to see that Netflix wasn't selling DVDs, it was selling freedom from pain. Second, the poison profit. They were addicted to late fee revenue. That's 16%. To eliminate, it felt like financial suicide. But that profit was a poison pill, eroding customer loyalty every single day. Third, and most crucially, the innovation debt. By the time they launched Blockbuster Total Access, an actually decent hybrid model where you could rent online and return movies to the store, it was too late. On paper, it was a brilliant solution for the DVD rental war, but it was like bringing a better sword to a gunfight. Netflix had already moved the battle to streaming, and Blockbuster was too weighed down by the cost of its physical empire to change course. They were trying to run a digital marathon wearing concrete shoes, thousands of stores, crushing debt, a dying business model. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Netflix, the company they could have bought for spare change, was worth over $10 billion. The ghost of Blockbuster doesn't just haunt history, it haunts every boardroom today. The lesson isn't just innovate or die, it's more visceral. What is the profitable, comfortable thing you do that your customers secretly hate? What are you clinging to that blinds you to the next shift? For taxis, it was the Medallion. For retail, it was the brick-and-mortar store. For Blockbuster, it was the late fee and the Friday night drive. Disruption doesn't just beat you with better tech. It finds your comfort zone and sets it on fire. Netflix rewrote entertainment. But no king reigns forever. In 2022, they faced their own blockbuster moment, losing subscribers for the first time in a decade, hammered by competitors and changing habits. But here's the critical difference. Netflix didn't freeze. They fought back with a brutal 3-part survival playbook. First, they went after their own profit leak, password sharing. They blocked millions of free viewers, forcing them to pay. It was a risky gamble for guaranteed revenue. Second, they swallowed their pride. They launched a cheaper, ad-supported plan, shattering their own no commercials ever rule to win back budget-conscious viewers. Third, they doubled down on their only real weapon, content. They bet billions, not on more shows, but on cultural earthquakes, must-watch hits like Stranger Things that became the very reason to subscribe. And it worked. They clawed back. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a masterclass in avoiding the autopsy table. The lesson of Blockbuster versus Netflix isn't that the disruptor wins. It's that disruption is a cycle. The table is always waiting, and the only way to stay off it is to have the courage to set your own comfort zone on fire before someone else does. The last Blockbuster still stands. A monument to a world where Friday night had a ritual, a destination, and a late fee. Their story isn't just a lesson in bad business. It's a lesson in human nature, in the quiet, comforting weight of the way things are. The table is ready. The only question left is, who's next?